Today I wanted to talk to you about the first time I got a job as a technical writer. This was back in 1994, I believe, and I had been looking for work as a technical writer for a while. Up until 1992, I was working as a lobbyist for medical causes and such. And my boss decided that he no longer needed me. Well, more importantly, he no longer could stay in business. So he let me go, and I was out of work for a bit and trying to figure out what to do. I decided that I would make my next career technical writer, and had some pretty good computer skills. I could use both Mac and PC. I could do HTML, and I knew a lot of programs. I had a degree in creative writing, and I had some practice doing writing of this sort, more public relations, because when you were working as a lobbyist, that's kind of what you wrote in, was more of a public relations style. And obviously, I spent a lot of time reading legal documents and things like that. So I had a little bit of background in that direction, but still had a ways to go before I really had a lot of technical writing skills. Before I got my job, I had a few freelance gigs, mainly doing proposals, uh, and a lot of it around companies that were trying to get on the internet back then. Had that as kind of my portfolio. And I started applying for jobs, and I applied for jobs everywhere. Um, these days, Craigslist as this website that's been up, but even way back then, Craigslist was a list, and it was a list of employers and recruiters in the Bay Area. And so I tried to apply to almost all of them, even though I wasn't in the Bay Area. And I did the same thing here where I live. And I kept looking for different ways to get in. Eventually, I got an interview for a company called Wesson Taylor Wells and Associates. Now, this was a recruiting company, or more of a contractor employment company. So what they did was they hired you as an employee with benefits, and you could then work for them, and they would send you to different places. Now, where they wanted me to go was local. So, I mean, they weren't trying to send me to someplace new, but it was a place that they needed a technical writer and needed some programming background. I had a background in Fortran, a little bit of BASIC, and a little bit of what they were working off of, which is COBOL. And so I was able to read code. I couldn't code myself, not anything complicated, but I could read code. And that's kind of what they needed, was somebody who could read the code. I interviewed with them. Then I interviewed with the main programmer, who was also working for them. And I may have interviewed with one of the people of the actual company, but I don't remember if I even did that. At the same time, mind you, I was actually interviewing for a whole different job that I got but had to turn down, which was as a content creator for the local newspaper. And that paid significantly less, which is why I had to turn it down. The Wesson people, they really wanted me to just work for them. So they actually gave me another job redoing their website and doing the content for their website. So I did that. That was about an 8-week project that I did on the side while I was working for the local company, which was a healthcare company. So I was making money left and right for me, and it wasn't high paying. When you think about all the other things that you could do, but it was more money than I had ever been paid before. So I was very happy. And the contract lasted for about a year. I learned a lot on that job because I really didn't know what I was doing when I got there. I did the whole fake it till you make it, but I wrote about 500 pages of documentation for them for their programs that they use to run reports for their medical stuff. Did some internal documentation for the programmers, really helping them understand what code went with what product and everything, which I think was probably the more useful of the two things I did, because I'm not sure anybody ever read the guides that I wrote. There wasn't a lot of buy-in from the company, but the programmers really appreciated what I created for them. So that was great. I was there for a 1-year contract, and I left after a year. I kind of would have liked to have stayed on, but they kept flipping management at the company. And by the time I even got an interview to go on to the permanent thing, it was with somebody who really had no interest and even no real background for what I did. And so it went nowhere. And so that was the end of my first gig as a technical writer. And I then parlayed that into another job up in Phoenix, which I'm down in Tucson. So I had to actually move up to Phoenix for that second job, but I'll talk about that at another time. But it was a good one. It trained me to write and to use a lot of the tools. And I put together some decent documentation. That was my first gig.